Camilla Bennett never imagined her downfall would begin with a smile, but there she was, on that rainy Monday in April, watching Tyler Brooks lean over her desk with that easy charm that made the other interns swoon, while she secretly swooned too. What Camilla didn't know, as her nervous fingers adjusted her reading glasses and her heart raced like rush-hour traffic on I-40, was that smile cost exactly $100,000. And the man who'd paid for it watched from the glass-walled office on the top floor, a tumbler of Scotch whiskey in hand and absolutely no remorse in his chest. Let's rewind 3 weeks, because every tragedy and every romantic comedy disguised as a corporate nightmare needs a proper beginning. Camilla was 23 years old, with an impeccable resume, a cat named Luna, who was more independent than she'd like to admit, and a simple dream: to earn her place in the investment world through her own merit. No favors, no shortcuts. Just her sharp intelligence, and a determination her mother, Sarah, said she'd inherited from a grandmother nobody in the family dared to contradict. Pierce Capital occupied 3 floors of one of the most imposing buildings in downtown Memphis, in that part of the city where buildings reach for the sky and egos reach even higher. It was the kind of place where even the coffee had pedigree, and people measured success by the number of zeros in their bank accounts. Camilla felt like a well-intentioned intruder at a masquerade ball, except she was the only one without a mask, which she'd discover later was both her strength and her vulnerability. On her first day, while trying to memorize impossible names and not spill coffee on any Italian suits, she ran into Tyler in the hallway. He had that kind of effortlessly irritating good looks, perfectly tousled hair, toothpaste commercial smile, and charisma that could sell ice to Eskimos, or in his case, worthless stocks to naive investors. "You must be the new girl," he said, with a sparkle in his eyes that Camilla interpreted as friendliness, but was actually calculation. Tyler Brooks. "Welcome to the financial horror show." She laughed, because humor had always been her favorite shield. Camilla Bennett. "I hope to survive at least until Friday. With that smile, you'll run this place. And that's where it started. Not love, not yet, but something equally dangerous, the illusion that someone truly saw her." What Camilla didn't know was that at that exact moment, 3 floors up, Logan Pierce was wrapping up a particularly boring meeting with Swiss investors who only talked about sustainable growth and corporate responsibility. Terms he knew perfectly well translated to, "We want profit without getting our hands dirty." At 34, Logan had built an empire where other men would still be building sandcastles. He was brilliant, ruthless, and possessed the kind of coldness that made people wonder if he had a heart or just a very efficient calculator in his chest. His mother, Catherine Pierce, always said he was too strategic for his own good. Translation: incapable of feeling anything that couldn't be quantified in spreadsheets. And maybe she was right. Logan organized his life the way he organized his investments, with surgical precision, zero margin for error, and deep distrust of anything that smelled like spontaneity. Mr. Pierce, his assistant Jessica, interrupted his thoughts as he watched the rain turn Memphis into a gray watercolor. The quarterly reports. He took the folder without looking at her. Jessica was used to it. 3 years working for Logan had taught her that the boss was consistent in one thing: he never, ever let himself be surprised. Until that Thursday. It was during the informal happy hour the analysis team organized at a trendy bar on Beale Street. Logan rarely participated in these gatherings. He considered it a waste of time watching people pretend to like each other while drinking warm beer. But Marcus Hayes, his partner and the walking definition of friend who's actually an enemy waiting for opportunity, insisted, "You need to seem human once in a while, Logan. Even sharks surface." And that's where he saw her for the first time. Camilla was in a corner, talking with Rachel, her journalist friend, who worked in corporate communications. She wore a simple blue blouse, jeans, and laughed at something Tyler had said with a naturalness that made Logan frown. It wasn't the calculated laugh he was used to seeing at Memphis elite parties, those social giggles. that served more to fill silence than express joy. It was genuine, spontaneous, dangerously real. "Who's that?" he asked Marcus, without taking his eyes off her. "The new intern. Camilla something. Smart, from what I heard, and apparently immune to Brooks' charm." Immune? Marcus laughed in that cynical way Logan usually appreciated, but which, at that moment, irritated him for no apparent reason. Tyler's been hitting on her for 2 weeks. She's polite but doesn't bite. The guys are making bets on how long until he gives up. And that's when the idea emerged. Terrible, unforgivable, irresistible. Logan Pierce, the man who turned numbers into fortunes and predicted market trends with frightening accuracy, had an idea that even he couldn't rationally explain later. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the arrogance of someone who'd always won. Or maybe it was something darker, the need to prove that even genuine things could be bought, manipulated, controlled. 100,000, he said, turning to Tyler, who had approached the group. $100,000 if you make her fall in love with you by the end of the quarter. The bar fell silent. Tyler blinked, confused. "Sir, you heard me." Logan took a sip of whiskey. "The new girl, Camilla. Make her fall head over heels. Documented proof. And the 100,000 is yours, plus that promotion to manager you've been wanting." Marcus let out a low, cruel laugh. "Logan, this is a skill test," Logan completed, with that voice that admitted no opposition. "Tyler here keeps saying he's irresistible. Let's see if it's true." And Tyler, who was 28 years old, had credit card debt, an ambition that far exceeded his ethics, smiled back. "Deal." At that moment, while Camilla laughed at a joke without knowing her heart had just become a commodity, 3 things were about to happen. Tyler would fall truly in love for the first time in his life. Logan would discover that some things can't be bought. And Camilla would prove that underestimating a woman from humble origins, with a cat named Luna and a heart bigger than all the buildings in downtown Memphis combined, was the most expensive mistake a millionaire could make. But that, well, that would take a few more chapters to reveal. And when it did, no one, absolutely no one, would escape unscathed. If there's one thing Camilla Bennett learned growing up in a 900-square-foot apartment in Cooper Young, sharing a bedroom with her teenage brother and listening to her mother hum while preparing culinary miracles on an end-of-month budget, it's that life doesn't come with an instruction manual. But she also learned that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is because it's hiding a catch the size of an iceberg. The problem is that the human heart, even the smartest and most cautious, has an annoying tendency to ignore warning signs when someone smiles the right way. And Tyler Brooks, God forgive him, knew exactly how to smile. 3 weeks after the bet, which Camilla obviously didn't know about, while Luna, her cat, would probably suspect with that annoyingly accurate feline intuition, Tyler had become part of her routine with frightening naturalness. Breakfast at the corner bakery before work? Tyler would show up by coincidence, always with that excuse about waking up early to run. Lunch at the buffet restaurant she loved, far from the expensive places where senior analysts went. Tyler discovered he also preferred home cooking. Even Luna, the traitor, had purred when he showed up at the apartment to return a folder that Camilla didn't even know she'd forgotten. "It's nice," Sarah commented that night while preparing dinner in a kitchen that barely fit 2 people but always smelled like home. Polite, funny, and looks at you like you're the 8th wonder of the world. "Mom, he's just a colleague," Camilla protested, but felt the blush rising to her cheeks. "Actually, not even that. As a senior analyst, I'm just an intern. So what?" Jake, her 16-year-old brother, programming genius and owner of a brutal honesty that only teenagers possess, appeared with his laptop under his arm. "If the guy likes you, the position doesn't matter. Nobody said he likes me. Cammy, he brought you a sigh on Monday, without you asking, with granola and strawberries, the way you like it." Jake rolled his eyes. "The guy's clearly into you. The question is, are you into him?" And there was the $1 million question. Or in this case, the $100,000 question. But Camilla would only discover that when she was already bleeding emotionally. The truth, yes. She was starting to like Tyler. It wasn't that overwhelming movie passion where the music swells and the world stops. It was something more subtle, more dangerous, affection, comfort. The feeling that someone finally saw her beyond the numbers, beyond the impeccable resume, beyond the straight-A intern who reviewed reports late into the night while everyone else had gone home. What she didn't know was that 3 floors up, Logan Pierce was having the worst existential crisis of his life, which, considering the man navigated financial crises with the calm of someone solving crossword puzzles, was saying a lot. It started subtly, a discomfort, a nameless irritation every time he saw Tyler and Camilla talking in the hallway. Logan told himself it was because Tyler was slacking off at work, distracted by that ridiculous mission he himself had proposed. But then, on a particularly grey Tuesday, he saw Camilla laughing at something Tyler said, with that laugh that lit up her entire face, and felt something he hadn't felt since, well, never. Jealousy. Pure, irrational, unbearable jealousy. "Are you okay?" Jessica, his assistant, asked when she found him staring out the office window with an expression she could only describe as CEO having a silent breakdown. "Perfectly fine." "Mr. Pierce, with all due respect, you're crushing the glass with your hand." He looked down. Indeed, the glass was cracking under his fingers. He set it on the desk with more force than necessary. "Cancel the afternoon meeting." "But sir, it's the investors from—" "Cancel it." And for the first time in 8 years at Pierce Capital, Logan Pierce did something completely irrational. He left the office in the middle of the day, got in his car, and drove aimlessly through the cold Memphis streets while trying to understand what the hell was happening to him. He ended up stopping in front of his mother's house, that mansion in Germantown that looked like it came from a decorating magazine, where even the air seemed chosen specifically to impress visitors. Catherine Pierce was in the sunroom, drinking tea from Chinese porcelain while discussing flower arrangements with the decorator. When she saw her son, she immediately knew something was wrong. Mothers always know, even mothers who raised their children to be invincible. Logan, what a surprise. She dismissed the decorator with a graceful wave. "Something happened at the company." "No." "Then why are you here in the middle of the afternoon?" He sat in the armchair across from her, running his hands through his hair in a gesture that betrayed his agitation. "I did something stupid." Catherine arched a perfectly drawn eyebrow. "You? The man who turns others' mistakes into profit? A bet with an employee about a—" He hesitated because saying it out loud made everything worse. "About an intern." The silence that followed was the kind that precedes storms. Catherine Pierce wasn't a woman of half measures, especially not with the son she'd molded to be impeccable. "Explain, now." And he explained everything. The bet, the $100,000, Tyler, Camilla. And in an honesty that surprised him, he admitted what he hadn't even clearly said to himself until then, that he was becoming obsessed with a woman who didn't even know he existed. Not romantically, of course, or at least that's what he told himself. It was more of an intellectual curiosity. He wanted to understand what made her different, why she laughed that way, why she rejected Tyler's advances with politeness but firmness, only to give in little by little, as if disarming her own defenses against her will. Catherine listened to everything in silence. When he finished, she took a long sip of tea before speaking. "You're in love. Don't be ridiculous. Logan, I raised you. I know when you're lying, and you're lying to yourself." She stared at him with those grey eyes that didn't forgive weakness. "The question isn't whether you feel something. The question is what you'll do when this girl finds out what you did. She won't find out. They always do. And Catherine was right, of course. But not in the way anyone imagined. The bomb wouldn't explode through Tyler's carelessness, who was genuinely trying to hold back the wave of guilt that grew every time Camilla smiled at him. It wouldn't explode through Logan, who started avoiding any interaction with her because he didn't trust himself. The bomb would explode thanks to Jake Bennett, 16 years old, amateur hacker and overprotective brother, who in a fit of teenage curiosity decided to investigate that jerk from his sister's work and ended up finding, in the corporate emails he hacked with embarrassing ease, the entire conversation about the bet, screenshots, bank transfers, everything documented because Marcus, Logan's cynical partner, had a habit of keeping ammunition to use later, and he used it, not directly against Logan, but strategically leaking the information to the right people, including Jake, who wasn't subtle at all when confronting his sister on a Friday night, throwing the tablet in front of her with the conversation on the screen while Sarah listened to horrors from the kitchen. The silence that followed was the kind that breaks people. Camilla read, read again, because human brains refuse to accept certain betrayals on the first, second, or third reading. $100,000. Bet. Make her fall in love. Documented proof. Her name reduced to commodity. Her heart to entertainment for people bored with too much money and too little empathy. Cammy, Jake began, but she raised her hand. Give me a minute. She stood up, went to the bedroom, closed the door. Luna followed, because cats always know when humans are falling apart inside. And there, sitting on the bed she shared with dreams and plans, all those silly illusions that effort and character were enough, Camilla Bennett felt something change inside her. It wasn't despair, it wasn't tears, though they'd come later. It was rage, pure, crystalline, incandescent rage. And with it, a decision. If they thought she'd crumble in silence, hide at home and lick her wounds, like they expected humiliated girls to do, they were gravely mistaken. Because Camilla Bennett was Sarah's daughter, who raised 2 children alone on a nurse's salary and a queen's dignity. She was Jake's sister, who hacked corporate systems just because. And she, above all, wasn't the helpless damsel they imagined. She was the damsel with screenshots, proof, and a journalist friend with 50,000 Twitter followers. The war was just beginning. There are certain Mondays that make history. September 11th, 2001. November 22nd, 1963. And that Monday in May in Memphis, when Camilla Bennett arrived at Pierce Capital in a red dress she didn't even know she owned, high heels borrowed from Rachel, and a look that would make any reasonable executive consider working from home for the rest of their life. She didn't come to work. She came to blow up the entire circus and watch from the front row while everyone ran trying to put out the fire. And my God, what a show it was. Tyler saw her first. He was in the break room, making his 3rd coffee of the morning because his conscience hadn't let him sleep for 3 nights, when she passed through the hallway like a hurricane of purpose and red lipstick. He felt his stomach drop, because men who've done wrong recognize the look of reckoning from miles away. Cammy, I can explain. Can you? She stopped, turned to him with a calm that was more terrifying than any scream. Can you explain how you accepted $100,000 to play with feelings? Or how you documented every coffee, every conversation, as if I were an investment project? I fell in love for real. And it was true, pathetically true. Tyler had started as a con and ended as a victim of his own trap. Everything changed, I swear. You don't understand. Camilla approached, and there was fire in those brown eyes he thought were beautiful and now feared. I didn't come here for excuses. I came to return the favor. Since you all like games so much, let's play one last one. The rules are simple. I'm going to tell this beautiful story to everyone, starting with the financial press that Rachel knows so well. Then I'm going to social media. And then, just for fun, I'm going to sue the company for workplace harassment. How do you think your Swiss investors will react to a CEO who turns employees into bets? And that's exactly what she did, with surgical precision, with impeccable documentation, with a coldness that would have left Logan himself impressed if he weren't too busy having a nervous breakdown in his office while watching his world crumble in real time. The first article came out on the financial website at 10 in the morning. Investment firm CEO bet $100,000 on conquest of intern. By 11, Twitter was on fire with the hashtag #PierceNoMore. By noon, feminist protests were organizing in front of the building. By 2 in the afternoon, 3 major investors had cancelled contracts. By 4, the board was demanding explanations. By 5, Logan Pierce, for the first time in his brilliant and relentless career, had absolutely no answers. He was in the boardroom when Camilla walked in, without knocking, without asking permission, as if she owned the place. And ironically, at that moment, she did. She had the power that comes from righteous indignation and media on her side. "You." She pointed at him like pointing a gun. "I need 2 minutes." Marcus, the partner who had strategically leaked the information because he saw in it an opportunity to take control of the company, started to protest, but Logan silenced him with a look. Everyone out. When they were alone, the silence was deafening. Logan studied her, really saw her for the first time. Not the shy intern he'd observed from afar, not the game piece he'd treated as entertainment, but Camilla Bennett, 23 years old, nurse's daughter, teenage hacker's sister, owner of a courage that half the executives in that building didn't possess. "Come to finish the job?" he asked, and there was something broken in his voice she didn't expect. "I came to understand," and she really wanted to. "Why? You have everything, money, power, a company worth millions. Why do this to someone who never did anything to you?" Logan stood, went to the window. Outside, Memphis continued indifferent to the human dramas unfolding on that 20th floor. "Because I could." The honesty cut like a blade. "Because I was bored. Because I spent my entire life seeing people as numbers, investments, variables. And you were different. Annoyingly different." He turned to her. "I wanted to prove to myself that even the most genuine person had a price. And did you prove it?" "No." He laughed humorlessly. "I proved that I'm exactly the monster my mother feared it'd become." Camilla stayed silent. Part of her wanted to leave there and never look back. Another part, smaller and more dangerous, saw something in Logan's eyes she recognized. Regret. Not the convenient kind that appears when someone gets caught, but the real, visceral kind that hurts. "Your resignation has already been accepted," she said, because Rachel had sources everywhere. "The board will remove you from the presidency by the end of the week." "I know. Your mother said you brought shame to the family. I know that too. And Tyler is being sued along with the company." "I figured." Logan approached her slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "Can I ask you something?" "You can. I can't guarantee I'll answer. What do you want?" "Really? Not revenge, not lawsuits. You, Camilla Bennett. What do you really want from this life?" The question caught her off guard. Nobody asked that. People assumed. Money, stability, justice. But nobody asked what she specifically wanted. "I want to be seen." The answer came out before she could filter it. "Not as an intern, not as so-and-so's daughter or someone's sister. As me. With my talent, my flaws, my story." She swallowed hard, and I wanted someone to have given me that choice before turning my feelings into an Excel spreadsheet. "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry." Camilla grabbed her bag, moved toward the door. "The difference is, some are sorry because they did it, others because they got caught. You find out which is which when you lose everything." And she left, leaving Logan alone with the weight of his choices and the growing certainty that he'd lost something he didn't even know he wanted until it was irretrievably out of reach. The following 3 months were chaotic. Pierce Capital entered deep crisis. Marcus took over as interim president and, surprise to no one, was worse than Logan in all the ways that mattered. Logan moved from the Germantown mansion to a modest loft in the Cooper Young neighborhood, sold his imported car, and started doing something he'd never done: living, cooking, walking the streets, talking to neighbors, reading books that weren't about finance, and thinking a lot about who he was when nobody was watching, about what he'd built and what he'd destroyed, and inevitably about the woman in the red dress who exploded his life and, without knowing it, saved him from himself. Camilla changed too. The lawsuit against Pierce was advancing, and she'd received 3 job offers, one of them at a fintech startup that promised to revolutionize ethical investments. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was stronger, more confident. But there were days, usually rainy Sundays, when Luna slept on her lap, when Camilla found herself thinking about the broken man who looked at her from the window and admitted his demons, and wondered if people really changed, or if they just got better at hiding who they were. The answer would come, but not yet. There was still a long road ahead, much to be lost, found, and built again. October arrived in Memphis with that cold that seeps into your bones and settles in your soul, the kind of temperature that makes people rush home early and embrace mugs of hot chocolate like their lifelines. Camilla was at the Innovate TN office, the fintech that hired her as a full analyst, with a salary that made her mother cry with joy and Jake demand a celebration dinner with all-you-can-eat pizza. It was a small company, still growing, founded by 3 visionary entrepreneurs who wanted to prove that profit and ethics could coexist. The kind of idealism that Camilla, 3 months ago, would have embraced without questioning. Now, more cautious and infinitely more cynical, she kept expectations low and skepticism high. Luna approved of this new version of her. Sarah worried. "You're more closed off," her mother commented one of those nights while they prepared dinner together in the cramped kitchen. Camilla still didn't have the courage to leave, even though she could afford a bigger place. "You don't laugh like before." "I'm fine, Mum." "I didn't ask if you're fine. I said you don't laugh." Sarah had that annoying gift of seeing through masks. "He hurt you, I know, but don't let that man steal what you have that's best, the ability to believe in people." "What if I don't want to believe anymore?" Then he won. Camilla had no answer for that, so she changed the subject because she'd become excellent at avoiding difficult conversations. But the phrase echoed in her head for days, annoying like an earworm. Then he won, as if it were a competition, as if there were winners when everyone was bleeding. What she didn't know was that across town, Logan Pierce was having exactly the same conversation with Aunt Patricia, the only person in the family who always treated him like a human instead of an investment project. Patricia was 60 years old, had 3 divorces under her belt, and cynical wisdom that came from living long enough to know that people were rarely villains or heroines. They were usually just scared. "You're punishing yourself," she said, sitting on the worn sofa of the loft Logan now called home. It was so different from the mansion. No expensive artwork, no panoramic view, just an honest space with second-hand furniture and plants he was learning not to kill. "It won't bring her back. I don't want to bring her back, a lie. They both knew it. I just want to fix things." "You don't fix people, Logan. They're not Excel spreadsheets." "Then what do I do?" Patricia studied him with those eyes that had seen so much that nothing impressed anymore. "Become a real person, and hope that if you ever cross paths again, she sees the difference." And fate, which has a cruel sense of humor, decided that one day would be 3 weeks later, when Camilla entered the Innovate TN conference room to meet the new strategic consultant the startup had hired to help with expansion. The door opened, and there he was. Logan Pierce, in jeans, simple button-down shirt, without the $5,000 suit, without the arrogance, without anything that defined him before. Just a man with deep, dark circles and a look that apologized before he even opened his mouth. The world stopped, or at least that's what it seemed to Camilla, who gripped the edge of the chair to keep from stumbling. Next to Logan was David Foster, one of Innovate TN's founders, oblivious to the emotional bomb that had just detonated. "Camilla, good to see you. This is the consultant I mentioned. Logan is helping us structure the next round of investments." David smiled, enthusiastic. "Do you two know each other?" Silence. The kind of silence that carries entire stories. Even David noticed he'd asked something complicated. "We do," Logan said, with a voice she didn't recognize. Softer, more tired. "We worked together before." "Perfect summary," Camilla responded, with poisonous sweetness. "Very well summarized indeed." David looked from one to the other, clearly confused, but decided he didn't want to get involved. "Right. Well, shall we begin? We have a lot to discuss about the fundraising strategy. The next 2 hours were exquisite torture. Camilla had to sit there, listen to Logan present brilliant market analyses, solid strategies, plans that could really save the company from common startup traps. And he was good, very good, but different, without that cutting arrogance. He asked for opinions, listened, adjusted ideas. At one point, when Camilla suggested an alternative marketing approach, he simply agreed. The old Logan would have demolished the idea. This new one considered it. When the meeting ended, David rushed off to another call, leaving the two alone. Logan gathered his papers too slowly, clearly procrastinating. "You don't need to feel awkward," Camilla said, grabbing her laptop. "I'll request a transfer to another area. Either you leave or I leave. Simple as that. No." He finally really looked at her. "No, I'll leave. You deserve to be here. This job, this chance, you earned it. I won't ruin it again." How noble. She couldn't hold back the sarcasm. The great Logan Pierce sacrificing himself for the commoner he humiliated. It's not about nobility. He stood, and there was something raw in those eyes that made her stop. It's about doing the one right thing after months of wrong decisions. "And why are you here anyway?" The question came out before she could censor it. Did your company fail? Did your millions evaporate? Are you begging at startups now? I resigned. Simple as that. I stepped away from Pierce, sold my shares, donated half to organizations supporting workplace harassment victims. The other half I invested in projects that actually make a difference. He hesitated. And yes, begging. Not for money, for purpose. The chance to do something that doesn't destroy people. Camilla processed this in silence. Part of her, the rational part, said to get out of there and never look back. But there was another part, smaller and more dangerous, that saw the dark circles, the simple clothes, the way he seemed smaller, not physically, emotionally, as if he'd shrunk to the right size. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, and hated how weak her voice came out. "Because you deserve to know." Logan picked up his folder, moved toward the door. "And because if our paths are going to cross here, you need to know I'm not that man anymore. Not completely. I'm still flawed, still have work to do. But I'm trying, genuinely trying." And he left, leaving Camilla alone in the conference room, with a racing heart and 1,000 unanswered questions. The main one, did people really change, or did they just get better at hiding their natures? The following months were strange. Camilla and Logan ran into each other weekly at Innovate TN strategic meetings. They were professional, cordial, kept safe distance. But something was changing slowly, like ice melting in slow motion. He brought coffee the way she liked it without asking. She reviewed his reports and left notes with corrections, always acidic, but starting to have touches of humor. Until one day, on a Friday in November, when everyone had already left and only they remained reviewing numbers for an important presentation, she asked, "Do you have nightmares?" He looked up from the charts, surprised. "About what happened?" "Yes," Logan thought before answering, because he'd learned she deserved honesty. Every day. He leaned back in his chair. "I dream about that moment at the bar, and I choose differently. I don't make the bet. Or I go to you, introduce myself as a person, not as a predator, and I wake up knowing I can't go back in time and choose again." Camilla was silent for a long moment. "I have them too," she admitted, "and the vulnerability cost dearly. I dream I find out earlier, that I confront you, that I don't fall for Tyler or a lie, and I wake up furious with myself for not seeing the signs. There were no signs." His voice became hoarse. "You were careful, smart. We were the monsters, were." She arched an eyebrow. "Are you putting yourself in the past? I'm trying to leave that man behind. And are you succeeding?" Logan looked at her, really looked, in a way he never had before. Not evaluating, not calculating, just seeing. "Ask me again in a year, if you're still around to ask." And Camilla, against all common sense, against all the painful lessons of recent months, smiled. Small but genuine. "Maybe, if you don't mess everything up first." But something was changing. Slowly, cautiously, like two wounded animals learning to trust again, and maybe, just maybe, there was hope in the ruins. December in Memphis is a walking contradiction. The heat insists on appearing, even though the South doesn't quite know what to do with temperatures above 75 degrees. Camilla was on the small balcony of the new apartment she'd finally rented, a charming studio in Midtown that had a view of trees and didn't cost half her salary. Luna enjoyed the afternoon sun, stretched out on the plastic chair like a queen on her throne, while Camilla reviewed reports and tried not to think about the fact that in 3 days she'd be spending Christmas at Logan Pierce's mother's house. Yes, that Catherine Pierce, the ice socialite who publicly said her son had stained the family name by getting involved with employees. The same one who'd gone months without speaking to Logan after the scandal. And who, surprisingly, had personally called Camilla 2 weeks ago, with that voice polite and cold as French champagne, inviting her to Christmas dinner. "It would be an honor to have you with us. Logan says you're essential to the Innovate TN project, and I would like to meet you properly, as if the first meeting, via newspaper headlines and lawsuits, didn't count." Camilla almost refused. Then she remembered Rachel's advice. "Look, girl, sometimes you have to enter the dragon's lair just to prove you're not afraid of fire." And also, she admitted to herself in the lonely hours of dawn when insomnia hit, she wanted to see Logan outside the professional context, without the meetings, without the reports, without the corporate armor they both used to maintain safe distance. In the last 2 months, something had changed between them. Nothing dramatic. No passionate declarations or reconciliation scenes worthy of a soap opera. They were small things. Him remembering she liked dark chocolate and leaving a bar on her desk with a simple note, "For the difficult days." Her sending articles about ethical investments with sarcastic comments that made him laugh. Once, when they stayed late organizing spreadsheets for a crucial presentation, he fell asleep on the office couch. Camilla took her jacket and covered him, because even after everything he looked so tired, so human. When he woke up and found her still working, he simply thanked her with his eyes. And then the day came, December 24th. Camilla chose a green dress that Sarah helped find at a downtown store. Elegant without being pretentious, beautiful without screaming him trying to impress. Jake, who was home for the holidays, took her picture with his phone. "My sister got classy," he joked, but there was genuine pride in his voice. "Go there and show all those people that Cooper young folks are badass too." Logan picked her up at 7 in the evening. He rang the doorbell like any normal person, climbed the 2 flights of stairs in the building without an elevator, and when she opened the door, he was speechless for 3 whole seconds, which, for a man who negotiated millions with surgical coldness, was practically a year. "You look," he began, then stopped as if words were insufficient. "Presentable," she offered with a half-smile. "Beautiful, simple, direct, true." The drive to Germantown was silent but not uncomfortable. Logan drove carefully, and Camilla watched the city lit up by Christmas decorations, thinking how life was strangely circular. A year ago, she was a dreamy intern. Now she was a suspicious analyst going to dinner at the house of the man who destroyed her, and who, inexplicably, she was beginning to forgive. Maybe even more than that, but she wouldn't think about that now. Not yet. The Pierce mansion was exactly what Camilla imagined, elegant to the point of intimidation, with meticulously manicured gardens and Christmas decorations that probably cost more than her car. Catherine received them at the door, with Patricia beside her. The irreverent Aunt Camilla had met at a casual meeting and who immediately adopted her as a confidant. "Camilla, dear." Catherine extended her hand, and the smile was rehearsed, but not completely fake. "Thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Pierce. Please, just Catherine, a test." Camilla recognized it, to see if she'd be intimidated by the forced intimacy. "Catherine," she held her gaze. "Your home is beautiful. And your dress, too," Patricia intervened, hugging Camilla with genuine warmth. "Green looks good on you. Makes your eyes sparkle." "Logan, didn't you comment?" "I did," he responded, with that half-smile Camilla was learning to decipher. She just chose to ignore it. Dinner was interesting. Besides Catherine, Patricia, Logan, and Camilla, there was Derek Pierce, Logan's younger brother, charming and annoyingly similar to his brother in features, but completely opposite in personality. Where Logan was reserved, Derek was expansive, and he had that calculating look that Camilla immediately recognized, ambition poorly disguised as sympathy. "So you're the famous Camilla," Derek said, serving wine as if he were the host. "The woman who almost destroyed our family empire." "Impressive." "Derek," Logan's voice had a clear warning. "What? It's true." Derek smiled, but there was poison there. "Nothing personal, Camilla. I just admire the efficiency. Few people can shake a billion-dollar company with some screenshots and a viral post. It's almost inspiring." "Derek is managing Pierce's transition," Catherine explained, ignoring the tension. "After Logan decided to pursue other paths, someone had to take over. And I'm loving it," Derek completed. "No offense, bro, but you were getting soft. Ethical investments, startup consulting. Since when does Pierce care about social causes? Since I discovered that profit without purpose is just empty numbers." Logan didn't take the bait. He was different, calmer, as if his brother's provocations didn't reach him anymore. Philosophical. Derek rolled his eyes. "Well, while you save the world, I save the assets. Someone has to maintain the Pierce standard." Camilla observed everything in silence, and something became clear. Derek wasn't just managing the company. He was savoring being in command. And from the look he gave Logan, he had absolutely no intention of returning the throne. After dinner, while Catherine and Patricia organized desserts, Logan took Camilla to the back garden. It was surprisingly peaceful there, away from the lights, just the sound of crickets and the smell of jasmine in the air. "I'm sorry about Derek," he said, leaning on the stone railing. "He's resentful." "Can I ask why?" Logan thought before answering, because he was learning that honesty cost dearly, but was worth every penny. "Because I was always the favorite, the firstborn, the brilliant one. He lived in the shadows his whole life." Pause. "And when he finally had the chance to shine, it was because I fell. It must be strange to achieve something at the cost of someone else's disgrace. Do you forgive him?" "I forgive him, but I don't trust him." He looked at her. "I learned those are different things." Camilla absorbed this. There was wisdom there, the kind that comes from scars. "Can I ask something?" she said, after a comfortable silence. "Always. Why did you invite me? Really? It wasn't your mother. It was you who suggested it, wasn't it?" Logan smiled, small but genuine. "It was. Because..." He hesitated, looking for the right words. "Because in recent months, you're the only person who treats me like a human. Not like the fallen CEO, not like the prodigal son. Just as Logan. Imperfect, trying, failing sometimes. And I wanted you to see where I came from. The people who shaped me. To understand why I'm the disaster I am." "You're not a disaster," Camilla responded, and was surprised to realize she believed it. "You're a work in progress. There's a difference. And you?" He turned to her completely. "Is that what you are too? A work in progress? We all are." She held his gaze. "The question is whether we're building alone or if we let someone help. And would you?" The question had weight. "Would you let me help?" Camilla thought. About everything that happened. The bet. The humiliation, the nights crying, but also about the coffees left on the desk, the sarcastic notes. The way he looked at her now, not as a conquest, not as a project, but as an equal, as a partner, as someone he respected too much to lie to. "Maybe." She smiled, small but real. "If you promise not to mess up again, I can't promise not to mess up. Honest to the end. I'm human. I'll fail. But I promise to try, every day, to be better than yesterday, better than the man who hurt you." And there, in the perfumed garden of a house that represented everything that separated them and nothing that really mattered, Camilla did something that 3 months ago would have been unthinkable. She took his hand, intertwined her fingers. and held on. It wasn't complete forgiveness. It wasn't a happy ending wrapped with a bow. It was a beginning, fragile, uncertain, brave. And sometimes, just sometimes, beginnings are more beautiful than endings. Epilogue. 9 months later. Memphis International Airport, 6 in the morning. Camilla was in the check-in line with a suitcase Sarah helped pack, a brand new passport, and a letter in her pocket that Luna, in her infinite feline wisdom, had slept on all night as a last sabotage attempt. Beside her, with a large coffee in hand and dark circles that betrayed a poorly slept night, Logan Pierce smiled in that new way he'd developed in recent months. Genuine, light, without the arrogance that once defined every expression. "Are you sure you don't want me to come along?" he asked for the 3rd time. "Absolutely." Camilla rolled her eyes but was smiling. "Logan, it's work. I'm going to Berlin to present our ethical microcredit project to German investors. It's not a honeymoon. Yet." He took a sip of coffee. "But it could be. Berlin is romantic in autumn. You've never been to Berlin in autumn." "True. But I'm willing to try." He set down the coffee, got serious for a moment. "I'll miss you. I'll be gone 10 days. You'll survive. I'll survive. But I won't like it." Camilla looked at him, really looked. That man who a year ago was a symbol of everything she hated, arrogance, privilege, casual cruelty, and who now was, well, complicated. Still imperfect, God knew. Still with controlling tendencies that needed to be reined in regularly. But trying, genuinely, painfully trying to be better, and against all odds, and Rachel's sensible advice, who said, "Cammy, honey, are you an emotional masochist or what?" She was in love with him. Not in the naive way from before, but in the frighteningly mature way of someone who knows the other's flaws and chooses to stay anyway. "Do you have something for me?" she asked, because it had become a joke between them. Logan always gave symbolic gifts before trips. A compass when she went to Nashville, a poetry book when she visited his mother. Small things that said him thinking of you without needing to say it out loud. He smiled, that smile she was dangerously addicted to, and pulled something from his coat pocket. A postcard, old, faded, with an image of the Brandenburg Gate. Found it at a used bookstore. He handed it to her. "Thought of you." Camilla turned the postcard over. On the back, in that elegant handwriting of his that had improved but was still doctor-like, it read, "For the woman who taught me that the best investments have no stock market quotes. Bring stories. Bring yourself back, L." She felt her eyes burning, which was ridiculous because she wasn't going to cry in an airport line at 6 in the morning like a cheap rom-com protagonist. "You're terrible for my cynicism," she murmured. "Good." He pulled her into a hug, and there, in that instant, with the smell of coffee and her perfume that he'd completely memorized, he whispered, "Come back soon. My life got annoyingly dull when you're not in it. 10 days, Pierce. You'll manage. Maybe." He released her but held her face between his hands for a moment. "Camilla Bennett, you're the best thing that ever happened to me, even when you hated me. Especially when you hated me." "I still hate you sometimes," she joked, but there was emotion in her voice. "I know." He kissed her forehead, a gesture that had become intimate between them. "It's one of the things I love most about you." And then she left, passed through security, waved from the line, disappeared among strangers toward a plane that would take her an entire continent away. Logan stood there, planted like the lovesick idiot he was, until he couldn't see her anymore. Then he grabbed his phone and texted Patricia, "I think I'm going to propose when she gets back." The response came quickly. "Obviously you are, you slowpoke. Even the plants in my house know you're in love with that girl. The question is, will she say yes?" And that, Logan thought as he returned to the car in the freezing parking lot, was the million-dollar question. Or in his case, the question worth infinitely more than any fortune he'd ever possessed, because Camilla Bennett had taught him that some things are priceless, and that life's best achievements are those you don't deserve, but fought like hell to become worthy of. 10 days later, when she returned with stories, photos, and a collection of postcards that would make Sarah sigh with joy, she found Logan waiting at the airport with flowers, that silly smile, and a nervousness she'd never seen in him before. "Did something happen?" she asked, alarm bells ringing. "Yes. No. Maybe." He was stuttering, which was hilarious. "Depends on your answer. Logan, you're scaring me." And right there, in the arrival hall of the airport, with people passing by, with flight announcements echoing, with all the lack of cinematic romance in the world, he knelt, pulled out a small box from his pocket, and said, with a choked voice and shining eyes, "Camilla Bennett, you owe me nothing. I owe you everything. Your anger taught me humility, your forgiveness taught me compassion, and your love taught me that being imperfect isn't a flaw, it's being human." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "Marry me, not because I deserve it, but because I want to spend the rest of my life becoming the man who deserves you." Silence, eternal, endless. Then, "Get up." She pulled him up, half laughing, half crying. "You drama queen, is that a yes?" "It's a maybe." She held his face, eyes on eyes. "It's ask me again in 6 months, and see if I'm still putting up with your control issues. It's let's try and hope we don't mess everything up." Pause. Smile. "And it's put that ring on before I lose the courage to say yes." And he did. And they laughed and kissed, and people applauded because humanity loves happy endings, even when they're complicated, imperfect, scary. Because love, Camilla and Logan discovered that Cold September Day isn't a fairy tale. It's choice, daily, difficult, beautiful in its own crooked way. It's waking up and deciding to stay. It's messing up and apologizing. It's growing together even when growth hurts. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best stories aren't about someone saving someone. They're about two wounded people deciding to heal together, one scar at a time. So, did you enjoy this story of love, drama, second chances, and lots of emotional growth? If you followed Camilla and Logan to the end, if you rooted for them, got frustrated, got emotional, leave a like so other people can find this story too. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Your support helps spread narratives like this to people who, just like you, love getting emotional with intense romances and real characters. Thank you so much for reading to the end.